This is the Citrus Experience podcast, brought to you by Citrus Men. We're passionate about growing premium grafted citrus trees and helping you on your growing journey. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or an emerging green thumb, this series is for you. We share expert advice, insider knowledge and practical tips you can apply because we know and grow citrus.
Hello and welcome to the Citrus Men podcast. I'm Susan Burns.
And I'm Gary Isles.
In this episode, we're going to be discussing the distinct cycles of a citrus tree, linked, of course, to the seasons. In each of the 4 cycles, a citrus tree is doing something rather wonderful and amazing, and we're going to be discussing what they're up to. So, Gary, where should we start? Spring?
Spring, I think, is a great place to start. So, yes, we'll talk about what happens in the spring first.
Yeah. What are those citrus doing?
Well, the citrus springtime is flowering time. So that's when everything wakes up and the plant decides that it's time to flower and get some fruit underway. So the cycle for fruit is lengthy with citrus, but it starts in the spring. So after the winter, when days start to lengthen and we get some temperatures warming up, then the tree will start to flower. Now, the fruit development runs over 3 phases, and this is the first phase, the flowering phase. So this is when you get the great aromas and the tree starts to look good with fresh flush and flower. It's a great time for a citrus tree.
Oh, Gary, you've just launched a beautiful memory in my mind. I remember driving, now this might sound a bit pretentious, but was in an open-top car through Leeton, through the orange groves in the road, and the fragrance from the oranges, oh, honestly, it was like having your head in a bottle of cologne. It was, gosh, they're so fragrant, citrus trees. Yes, spring and flowers, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yes. Yep, I've experienced a similar thing, and yes, the fragrance is amazing when it's that intense.
So the tree is starting to move. The flowers are starting to pop. All those buds are popping. What are the roots doing?
Well, it's the same, Susan, as we have on top of the ground. The roots are starting to wake up as well. So they're starting to grow. They're starting to absorb nutrient. They're starting to push nutrient up into the plant. So, yeah, when you see things happening above, then there's something happening underneath as well. So it's a time when the whole plant is coming to life.
Yeah. So, that's a very good point that you make there, Gary. Maybe people don't realise it. Tree is really a mirror of itself, isn't it? What's happening upstairs in the foliage and the hair part is also happening down in the socks and shoes of the plant. And those roots, they're the little white, aren't they? They're the little fresh feeder roots that we're seeing.
Yes, they start to come out. Yes, and they become more active as it warms up, and that's the most important part of a plant. If there's a problem in the roots, then you don't get a nice healthy plant up above. So that's unseen, but it's the most important plant, both when it's planted out as a mature tree, but also when the trees are being grown in the nursery. We spend a lot of time looking at roots, making sure the roots are happy. If the roots are happy, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to jump in there and stress that point when you're repotting a plant, particularly when you get one of our plants in spring, you'll have a lot of those young feeder roots. Don't yank get a shudder, pulling the plant out and damaging those precious little roots. They're so precious. So caution. Gary,
just be careful. Just look after them.
Yes. So it's like a little bear. It's woken up. Things are happening. It's come out of its cave. But we're not giving it a full salmon at this stage, are we? What are we going to feed that citrus tree? Just a hello, welcome to spring.
Yeah, I often tell people to give some feed at the end of winter because that's when the trees start to be able to use the nutrient in the ground. But don't go overdoing it. Just be gentle and often, and you can ramp it up as it warms up.
Yeah, so it's probably a perfect time to use some citrus booster. It's It's a very gentle food. It's a nice, nourishing, complete fertilizer, and it will assist those roots to pull the nutrient up into the plant.
Yeah. It's a boost. Exactly what the name says. It's a booster.
It's a booster.
Just it helps the normal process of nature.
Now, I know, and we don't like to linger on these things, but also in spring, that's not the only thing that's waking up on our citrus tree, is it? There are other little critters that have been hanging around over winter. What else is waking up, Darren?
Well, often some insects will start to appear as well. It's everything's a life cycle, so and seasonal in our world. So yes, you might see a few aphids, newts, and coming to life. But in general, the tree's healthy. Don't rush into throwing controls around. They'll often pass. If it gets bad, sure enough, but generally, we don't like throwing control chemicals around if we don't have to. So that's when other things come to life as well. But we're focusing on the tree, and if we keep it healthy and growing, mostly pretty good.
Yeah, like us, you're much more resistant to problems if you're healthy and eating well and getting plenty of sleep and all of those things. Citrus trees are same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, while we're talking about flowering, I'd just like to make a little point that I came across when I was reading some information. Citrus trees, when they're mature, particularly oranges, they can have up to 250,000 flowers on a plant. It's massive, the flowering. So, and the number of fruits that set at the end of that can be around 1%. Wow. So the point I'm trying to make is they flower massively, and they'll never carry all that fruit. So in the natural process of what happens in the phase one of fruiting, which is happening in the springtime, is that the flower will form, the petals will drop, a lot of the fruit will drop, and then some fruit will hold on, and that will go on to complete the cycle. But in that first spring cycle, you will see flowers, petal fall, and fruit drop is perfectly natural, and that's what's happening. But 250,000 flowers can happen on a mature orange tree. So that's massive flowering, and that's why you get all that aroma, because there's so many flowers.
Yes. Wow, that is a party and a half. That's huge. And what a huge amount of energy to produce all those fabulous flowers. Wow, gosh, they're knockout. And yeah, you're right. I think, and it too, I suppose it's proportionate to the size of the plant, which, again, if you've got a new little plant, it's not going to. We don't even suggest you let it hold any fruit. It's too young. So let the tree do its thing.
Let it grow. Yeah, let it grow. Let the tree grow. In the first season or two, let the tree establish, and then you'll get to the point where you are producing a number of fruit more quickly. Because when a young tree produces fruit, it's also that's putting a lot of effort into that fruit rather than into growth.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so we know that spring probably starts at different times depending on your region. But it's really the triggers are, as we say, the day length, soil temperature and air temperature. They're all the signals for the tree to begin this beautiful spring phase.
Yes. I was reading up on this.
I'm doing a lot of reading, Gary.
I have. Yes, it's all I will. Of course, I'm interested.
You do.
Yeah. But there's influences are genetic, so the variety of the plant, their metabolic, which is the nutrient, and their environmental, so the day length and the temperature. All those things go in and affect when your tree's going to flower, when it's going to fruit, when the fruit's going to mature. All those things are interactive. So yes,
that would also be a reason why. Sometimes the season will change because our daily everything is off kilter a little bit. It's not always on the 5th of September this happens, it's to do with all those combined factors that are the precursor to the flowering and the fruiting.
Yeah, they all interact with each other, and we might have a spring that's wet and overcast, or we might have a spring that's dry and sunny, and it will affect the what's happening within the tree.
I also wonder, Gary, I know it's quite usual in fruit trees, apples, pears, stone fruit, to have an on and an off season. So you'll have a heavy crop one year and then the tree takes a holiday and you get very few fruit. I find that on my sugar bubba, it's very year on, year off. Is that a consistent thing with citrus?
No, it happens in citrus, but it's not consistent. It's varietal based. So some varieties, if they have a heavy crop, will have a light crop the year after. Lemons pretty well aren't affected by it, but with some oranges and with mangoes, yes, you will have that off season if they have a heavy crop.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so weather's getting warmer, days are getting longer. It's party time. This is, do you reckon, favourite season for citrus? Summer. What's happening in summer?
Summer. Well, they love the heat. Yeah. And if they've got if they've got nutrient, they've got water, then that's when they grow. So we get past the flowering, then we get into this growth phase through summer. So we're getting the plants growing. So it's growing roots, it's growing shoots, it's increasing in girth around the trunk, and the fruit's growing as well. So this is the second phase of fruit. This is a longer phase that runs through summer and into autumn, and that's when the fruit, the cells are growing and filling with moisture, and so this is the growing time. This is when citrus are at their happiest.
And this is the most important time for keeping up with your watering, particularly if you've got your citrus in pots. And as we say, don't come to the end of the fruit phase and go, oh, I didn't get much fruit, or I've got a dry fruit, because it's now in summer that you're the drink waiter. You are supplying drinks to that citrus tree, yeah?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. It's looking for everything it can get. So that's when consistency will pay off in the long run. You just look after your tree. Once the tree's mature and if it's in the ground, then it's less critical that it's in a container that's got a limited space. So that's pretty obvious. So, but they love to have a nice supply of water, never too much, but a consistent supply of water for moisture and the nutrients.
Yeah,
and all these things work together to get the fruit growing, get the tree growing, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say when as horticultural people, nurserymen, that we know the habit, we know the dramas. Like when I went through, you weren't even allowed to have a cup of tea if the trees were dry. It was always about the plants getting a drink first before you. And I think in our daily habits, if you've got citrus and you want to have good citrus trees, first thing in the morning, hot sunny day, give them a good soak. It's just a good habit. Just go out and do your watering, then they're fine for the day. But, on some days, as we know, you can't even keep the water up to them. They just reach a point where it's too hot in the summer.
Yeah, the tree will look a bit sad on those days. But if the moisture's there, then once it cools off, it comes back and there's no ill effects. But that's just part of nature, where they cope with those days. If there's enough moisture, not much more you can do. Yeah. If you've got the right amount of moisture supplied, then the tree's just got to survive those hot days.
Yes. Poor darlings. So again, we might still see a little bit of insect activity. We might see some beautiful caterpillars coming around. People hate them, but think about them as the beautiful butterflies that you see. And if you've got a lovely tree, it's a couple of caterpillars is not going to affect it. But what about, we often see water shoots at this time of the year, Gary. Can you describe what a water shoot is and how?
Yeah, that's water shoots are really strong growth that just seems to come straight out from a plant and grows longer than what you normally would expect. and they come when the plant's powering along, and if it's in the canopy of the tree, you could just prune it off. If it comes right from the base of the tree, I would prune it right back to the trunk. But yeah, they just happen. It's just part of nature, and the water shoot is like nothing to worry about, and it'll often be a bit thornier than the rest of the plant, a bit what I'd call more juvenile, and that's just what they do.
No,
So don't panic.
Don't panic. That's right. Don't panic. Everything can be fixed and corrected on a citrus tree, but not to be confused, of course. Which sometimes can happen is you'll get the understock will get away, and you'll see a shoot coming from below the graft. That's different to a water shoot.
Yes, a water shoot is a vigorous shoot that comes from the variety on top. The rootstock, any rootstock shoots, then we need to get them off as soon as you see them, and just take them right back to the trunk. Take them off neat with a pair of these, just right back, because it's the understock. Then it will tend to grow and take over if you let it go. You'll know them because they're thorny. They're often a different leaf. So you'll see it, and if it's coming right from the base, just clip it off, and the plant won't mind the pruning, and get it off and out of the way, and it's not going to take over the plant.
Yeah, lovely. So that's super important. Yeah, we often see sometimes that people have let those rootstocks get away, and it's drawing a lot of the growth out of the tree. So yeah, cut them back. So that's
and they're thorny as well.
Thorny.
So thorny. So you want to be rid of them. Yeah. No, that's right. But they're
so
different sort of thorns, those ones.
Is there anything else in summer that we should be thinking about?
Well, it's just that maintenance that we've been expressing, that we look after them, and I'll just go back to the fruit drop as well. The main fruit drop is at the end of that phase one, at the end of spring when the fruit's setting, but you will still see fruit drop through the entire cycle. Not as much, but there will be fruit drop. So again, don't panic if you see a few fruit dropping. If your moisture level's all good and you've got good nutrition, it's just, again, nature taking its way, dropping some fruit so that it can form better fruit with the ones that are left. So that's just part of the process. And again, don't be too concerned about it.
Yeah, good. So now we're moving through the summer, and my favourite time of the year, autumn. And I think it's a beautiful time for citrus in the autumn. They seem to have calmed down. They've finished partying. They're a little bit tired. They're just, in their stride. They've got beautiful fruit usually. They've got a lovely canopy. It's a lovely time to sort of shake your trees a little bit coming into the autumn, just to get take advantage of the warmth with a little push out of growth. What's happening to the citrus in autumn, Gary?
Yeah, well, I think you just described it pretty well. It's been working hard through the summer, and then it just eases off. You'll still generally get an autumn flush on your trees, so that last flush before it shuts down for the cooler part of the year. So yeah, you're getting that last flush. The tree's just taking it easy. So if you're regularly watering in your containers and that, you can ease back a bit because the temperatures are coming down. So it's don't keep your summer watering up through autumn and winter. You just ease that back. And again, if you're feeding hard a few times through the summer, ease that off as well. Just gentle feed in the autumn that will see them through. So yeah, but it is in the citrus world, it's quite a relaxed on the crops. The crop's nearly finished its growth phase. So in the very early varieties will start to ripen in autumn, but generally it's finishing the growth of the fruit through the autumn, and it's it's a nice time.
Yeah, it's a lovely time. If this was now you've had a lot of growth over the summer coming into the autumn, I think it's a pretty good time if you haven't got a lot of fruit on your tree and you've got it in a container. I'm thinking that you might want to up pot would you say autumn is a better time for uppotting, or would you say spring?
Look, you can do it any time. They're fairly resilient. If we're saying the best time, I like to do it at the end of the winter going into the spring, because then there's no period when the roots are, before the roots start to grow. But you can certainly do it in the autumn, and it's still warm enough for them to make some root before the winter.
Yes.
So it's if it suits the people. I mean, we're working that don't make the plant the boss, make the people the boss. So if that's a nice time to be out in the garden and do a bit of that, then do it in the autumn. There's no problem. And like I said, you'll get a little bit of root growth before the winter. No problem at all.
Yeah, and it's a great time to plant into the garden, because the soil is still warm. So if you're buying a beautiful tree from Citrus Men, and they always look fabulously larger than life because they've come through autumn, they're really itching to get out. So great to get them in the garden while the soil is still a little bit warm and the day temperatures are a little bit cooler.
Plants look great in the autumn. It's a great time for plants. I always enjoy looking at plants before they enter into the shutdown period. So, but autumn plants generally look great.
Yeah, lovely. So, shutdown period, that's it, isn't it? So now the days are getting shorter, the air temperature's getting colder, soil temperature's getting colder. So it's sort of time to put your pajamas on. But what are the citrus doing? They've got a job to do.
They do, yes. Well, yes, they're definitely getting into the shutdown phase. But it's phase 3 of the fruit development. So the fruits, you've gone through the flowering period, fruit's set, now the fruit's grown, now we're into maturity. So this is when the fruit will ripen. So although the plant will go to sleep, it's still operating at a slow pace, but it's still operating. It's not bringing up much nutrient because the roots, once the soil gets cold, the roots don't pick up the nutrients as well, particularly some of them, and the fruit just slowly matures, and it varies from late autumn, early winter, right through till into the spring. But the winter, they're a winter fruit maturing crop. So majority of the varieties will mature in the winter, and that's their main job in the winter.
Yeah.
You will start to see some of the older leaves will fall off. Some of them will yellow off and then fall off later in the season. But it's a time of going to sleep, resting, and then the rejuvenation starts when you get to the next cycle.
Yeah, and look, isn't it lovely the way that nature works, that we get these beautiful trees on a dark, dull day, and honestly, you can go for a walk and you can see these glowing baubles on these dark green citrus trees, and they're just so full of delicious, nutrient-rich juice and food, and ready to boost us up over winter with all their gorgeous things that they've got for us. So it's a gift. They're a gift. Yeah, don't worry.
That's right. That's what I do every day. Yeah.
But I know there's another cute little thing. There's a little cute thing that I love. I know that we talk about, so often you get that yellowing in the leaves, not a lot, but that patterning because the tree isn't able to pull up a lot of nutrients. But isn't it cute what mandarins do, how they get so cold they curl their little leaves up to try and keep warm?
Yeah, some of them see that a lot in emperor, the old emperor mandarin. See that their leaves will cup up when it's a miserable cold day. They'll trying to keep themselves warm. But they all have these little triggers, and some you can see and some you can't, and for them to get through the winter.
Yeah, so lovely. So the fruit is really what we're looking for in the winter, and it's just really hanging there. Is it that the tree giving it How is it ripening up? What are the key factors there for the knowing that it's ripe, and how is the tree influencing the fruit to say you're ripe?
You're right. Yes. Well, I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of it varietal, so it comes down to the genetics of the plant, and some of it's environmental. But the best place to ripen the fruit is on the tree. So once it's picked, that's it. It might colour a bit more, but it won't really ripen anymore. So in that period, the amount of acid in the fruit drops down, and the amount of sugar comes up. So the longer you leave it on the tree to maturity, the better. Now, some things, let's just pick an example, say a Valencia orange. Good, great juicing, old variety, great juicing orange. If you pick that when it's looking like it's ripe, and say that could be in July, it's going to still be pretty high in acid. So it's still going to be very, very tangy, very bitey to eat. But if you leave it on the tree until September, and it varies wherever you are, what part of the country you're in. Yeah. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is it can look ripe, but it's not ripe. So get one and taste it, and you'll soon see. And okay, well, no, that needs a bit longer, so you just leave it. But navel oranges, they're ripen in generally a bit earlier, and the same thing, they'll look ripe before they fully are, but not as much as what, say, the Valencia. But again, try it. Once it's coloured, then we'll just pick one. See, yeah, and you'll soon see. Oh no, I can eat that. Or nah, we'll leave that another month or 6 weeks. But yeah, leaving it will give you as I just said, the sugars will come up, acids will drop down, and it'll become a much more palatable piece of fruit. And I pick fruit from here, and people say, "Oh, that's so sweet," and it's because it's left on the tree.
Yeah. I think that's so valid, and I know from a lot of correspondence we get, people tend to think, "Oh, I've got the wrong tree." It's not. You've just leave the fruit. Again, going back to our little mantra, be patient. Let the tree do its thing. Yeah, and as you say, the fruit does get so sweet and juicy. So, yum.
Yeah. The other thing that helps with maturity is if you've got a pigmented fruit. So things like the blood oranges, they'll vary in two ways. They'll vary year to year on the amount of colour. They'll vary from where you are. Some places are much more conducive to the colour than others. But they'll also get better colour when they're properly mature. Yeah. So if you pick them early, you may see no colour. Yeah. But if you wait, then you'll get more colour.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, what a lot of wisdom you've shared today, Gary Isles. Fabulous. I hope all our lovely listeners have enjoyed today's episode. Just so interesting. They're so busy and active, those citrus trees, at all times of the year. And importantly, despite every season, the most important thing to do is to love them and enjoy them. They're a great tree. So thank you, Gary. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today. And on our next episode, we're going to go a bit behind the scenes. We're going to look at the citrus industry and biosecurity and how we keep citrus safe in Australia. So it'll be super interesting, and we look forward to you joining us then. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks for listening. For resources and contact details relevant to this episode, please see the show notes. Subscribe to Citrus Experience so you know when the next episode goes live, and follow Citrus Men on social media for more great content.